Hello everyone. We would be now uh, going to the next session of supplier selection and evaluation. So, we have moved from need identification, where we have analyzed the characteristics of needs, and we have put the products in broad categories of retail, raw material, uh, MROs, services, capital intensive products, semi assemblies or components, so various categories, and then we try to consider the supply market conditions and the value and impact of bought products, right, on any when we say in value or impact means it can be profitability impact on organization. So, we have already positioned our category of products in portfolio matrix in the quadrants. Okay. Now, uh, even after doing this exercise, we have placed the products within or category of products or services we want to buy in their respective quadrant. But now, even after placing that, what should be our strategy for selecting the right supplier? Which supplier should we be selected? This quadrant, this matrix approach would certainly help us broadly that how many suppliers are there. If they are abundant suppliers, that means we should leverage on the fact that we should go for some kind of cost related indicators, because there are enough suppliers and we can get the lowest price supplier, right. However, if it is the strategic matrix quadrant, right, in that case one has to go for partnership. There is a very less scope of searching for many suppliers. So, broad uh, framework is with us, but even then suppose if it is a non-critical leverage and bottleneck, where either suppliers are abundant or in bottleneck few suppliers are there, how to go about the right supplier, right? Who should be the supplier given the contract or award the contract? So this is very important exercise, very time consuming exercise for the in the whole sourcing process. So it has been an age old practice, right, to evaluate or to select suppliers. We ask for request for quotations or request for proposals, or sometimes we straightway ask for the bids, right, or we go for tenders, right. So once we receive the quotations or the response from the tenders, we just tend to compare what bids we have, and then we provide the usually the award goes to the lowest bidder, right. This was the practice long ago, like where we would invite bidders and we would go for the lowest bid, no doubt after checking the mere hygiene like quality, delivery, delivery kind of criteria, right, or lead time criteria. So definitely those things, why I'm saying hygiene in today's world, uh, quality, cost, price, delivery related things, they are basic hygiene thing, which every supplier has to comply. But what is beyond that? Because these criteria would certainly help us to choose the supplier to some extent. But even after considering this criteria, they are not sufficient to consider in today's world, which is full of volatility and turbulence. The same supplier supplying meeting all this criteria can go bankrupt the next week. It can hit by some natural disaster, which is an uncertain, unpredicted event. So this is something which one has to consider also for while making the selection or evaluation of supplier. So with this backdrop, we would see that what are the other criteria, right, which has to be considered while selecting the supplier. So it is very well said by some senior executive in IBM that searching for right supplier is as good as searching for the right fish in the ocean, ocean of many suppliers available. Okay, what should be the right strategy? First of all, to search for supplier. Where is the supplier pool lying? Okay, are we doing the right strategy? First, to search suppliers, identify suppliers, right? Because this is a very time consuming exercise. Okay, so and then if we will not have our right search space, right, we can go wrong in terms of selecting the right supplier. Okay, so what should be the sourcing strategy, right? Even if we have identified the right pool or the search space, right, whether I should go for single supplier or sole supplier, or we should go for dual supplier or multiple suppliers, right? That should always be the question. How to take critical decision on placing certain volume of business with the supplier. Okay, so the next question come, if it is dual or if it is a multiple supplier, what percentage of business should be awarded to one supplier over other? Should it be 50-50? Should it be 60-40? Okay, so all these questions are very important questions for selecting the right supplier. What should be the criteria of supplier selection, right? Even if I have got the qualified supplier, I've got the right pool of suppliers, I would invite them, to send bids, or participate in bids, or, send quotations. Okay, so after getting that, all the quotations, right, first of all, what criteria we are looking for, which should be there in the quotations. Now, after getting those quotations, how we are going to evaluate, right? What method we would evaluate, we will have to evaluate the supplier. It is kind of like, comparing the suppliers' bids, right? Like which one is better over another. Okay. Now, this exercise is very helpful, will be helpful for selecting the right supplier. At the same time, after selecting the supplier, after awarding the contract, uh, after doing transactions with the suppliers, we still need to monitor the supplier performance. Okay, so for that also, many companies, they use the same criteria which they adopt for evaluating the supplier or selecting the supplier for the, probably, the for the new kind of suppliers. Okay, so why we need to continuously evaluate the suppliers, right? So that they should keep complying with the requirements, and it is very important to monitor the performance of supplier in a continuous manner to manage them effectively. So this will be the context of this session, supplier selection. So it is, supplier selection is a kind of decision tree, right? So yes. For these for the startup, more than a startup, it depends on what kind of product startup is looking for. Okay, what kind of product and service startup is dealing with, it depends on that, right? Because whether it is a startup or is well established company. Okay, so what product they are dealing with, what is the supply market conditions are there, what is the supply market? First, supply market research is very important. It depends on that. Okay, the criteria per se would remain same. Okay, so even if it is a startup or established company, if I want to select a supplier, I want to select the right supplier, right? If it is a startup, it becomes even more important to be very careful, because the startups are already in a situation of capital crunch, okay, and this is a lot of time and a lot of expenditure is involved in even searching and identifying supplier exercise, okay. So it has to be done in a most economical way, so it becomes even more important that we select the right supplier, okay. So mostly it is a kind of decision tree that whether supplier A should be selected or B, right, whether in future it would be a success to go for supplier. If correct, then we can go for A, otherwise go for next supplier. If supplier would fail, then what we should do, right? So companies are always in this kind of dilemma, and that's what leads to make these decisions effectively. So first of all, we need to identify what is a potential supplier, okay. So you can say if you want to uh, use some kind of guideline or framework how to go for identify potential supplier, we first ask our question, can we make in house? Do we have capability to first produce or not, okay. And how to go about it, it is again it lies in the uh, in the discipline called outsourcing, right? What is the right condition for outsourcing and when we would make it. So we will do this in due course, okay. Once so basically now I can just tell that if the product which you are deciding to make or buy is a core competency, okay, core competency of an organization, one should make in house, okay. Now what is core competency? Can you identify core competency? The word competency means what? Yes. So competency means any capability.
Any capability that gives the organization a competitive advantage over its rivals.
Exactly. So theoretically, we are saying it gives competitive edge, competitive advantage over competitors. Theoretically, very good. Now, what is that competitive edge? What do we mean by that? Either we are capable of producing the same product at least cost as compared to my competitors, or I have capability to produce in large volumes and hence achieve economies of scale as compared to competitors, or I have a unique technology. I am the only player in the market who can make this product. Like such questions, response to such questions will help you answering what is my core competency. If the answer to these questions is yes, then go for make in house, right? Otherwise go for buying, okay. Now if you would decide go for buying, that's what the objective of today's class. We are trying to identify potential supplier. If we have now decided to buy, then we have to see, do we have current suppliers, do we have existing suppliers who can supply this requirement. If it is yes, we have suppliers, then should we go for one supplier, or should we go for dual supplier, or should we go for multiple suppliers, okay. And if it is not, right, if our current supplier cannot supply the product, can we find new supplier, right? So no new supplier, that's where the whole search comes. Whether one or more supplier can supply, then you can go for that. But how to do that, how to select and evaluate, that we will learn, okay. Select and evaluate, right? So that we would do, right? So we will have a pool of supplier. But if no supplier can supply, okay, this is also a problem to be tackled, right? If we are going for some new product, right, some innovative product, and no supplier can supply, then we can we go for supplier development to create supplier, okay. So what do we mean by supplier development, right? Has anybody know that how Honda cars came to existence? Has anybody read through the story of Honda cars? Okay, I will leave that to you. Think about it, you can search. So we will discuss when we will come to supplier development. Okay, that's a very interesting story about the supplier development, right? So can we develop supplier? Just now we have seen that, example of Kraljic, how they have developed the supplier, right? Suppliers were not existing, so they have come up with the unique technology to overcome the manual work, so they developed the supplier. If it is possible, then develop the supplier and done. If it is not, then we need to revise our design or specifications. Okay, is it possible? Yes, if you can design this specification, then again you can go from here to either this point, right, or this point. If it is not possible, then again you can just see that can we make in house, right? No supplier exists. Should we try making in house? If it is not, then again one has to rethink. Otherwise, if it is not, again you can go for the same route. So this is actually the framework of decisions which companies have to make in terms of identifying and selecting suppliers. Okay, so one can adopt this one to at every point. Now whether one should go for one supplier or multiple supplier, we will discuss. Okay, so in all so can we make in house? This decision has to be taken whether one should outsource or make in house. That will be done as a separate session on outsourcing. Okay, that we will do. That's very interesting session, like how to identify core competency and how to decide this I should outsource, this I should make in house. Now this we will do a separate session. Now this thing whether should go for single or multiple, that we will discuss today. If new supplier, how to select the supplier, right? What should be the criteria and how to evaluate, and then supplier development. So these are the decision points. Okay, what are the decision points? Yeah, whether to go for single source, dual source, or more than two. Should we buy from a manufacturer or distributor? In supply chain, where to buy? Okay, where should the supplier be located, right? Should we go for local or should we go for a global supplier, right? Can we buy from a small medium company or should we buy from large companies, right? If no supplier can be found, should we use the supplier development? These are the kind of decisions one has to take. Okay, now you can adopt this process, recognize the need, identify key sourcing requirement, determine sourcing strategy. This thing we have done till portfolio matrix. Okay, now we need to identify potential supply sources. Okay, first to get the pool of select suppliers, we need to first identify potential supply sources, and out of them we will select a few. Okay, then limit suppliers and selected pool, right? Then determine the method of supplier evaluation and selection, and then select supplier and reach arrangement. So now these things like will depend on many decisions which we need to find out whether to go for local supplier or global supplier, okay, single or multiple. So this decision will help, because here if we will address all those decisions, it will be helpful in evaluating the right number of suppliers. Now, how to first reach out to potential sources of information, right? How would you, suppose you are given a task, search for good suppliers for some innovative product, okay, or maybe a new kind of product, or the task is to go for new supplier. Okay, how you are going to search, right? The right place in an ocean. Okay, you cannot explore the full ocean, it will be a time consuming task. How would you go about? if you will be handling sourcing this thing, right? So what should be the right one? Okay, so there are number of options available to you. So one is definitely request for information and secure secondary market research one has to do, but that's not enough, right? You should be like, one has to be updated about any associations or conglomerates, right? There are now many aggregates are there, right? For example, in India, there is a association called Association of Component Manufacturer, component manufacturers, like uh, this is an Indian association where all component manufacturers are members of this association. Okay, this is auto component manufacturers association. Okay, so if such thing is available, so this auto vehicle or auto giants, it's very easy for them first to search for the pool of suppliers in this association, isn't it? So similarly, like oil and gas suppliers online, right? So one has to be aware of, are there any associations, right, or any conglomerates, like which have their own websites, or any of their societies, or where one can look for. Then catalogs, right? Trade journals and trade directories, like we have India Mart, right? So in India Mart, one can find out, like who are the suppliers, right? Many a times, as I've told you earlier, companies have dedicated team within sourcing department who just keep on visiting potential suppliers. Okay, so to know that what they are producing, right? Are they producing product of interest, right? Supplier and commodity databases, right? The sales representative, right? In our like we have seen the scenario where uh, purchasing section, okay, purchasing section of any company or any organization, right? Those are the points where the sales representatives or the marketing team would approach, right, to sell the product, right? And many a times the purchasing department cannot go for all the sales representative. They cannot, like entertain all the sales requests, but that can act as a good source of information. Okay, so one can definitely keep, it is very important. And same is the last thing, many a times, we just forget to search our own knowledge repository, right? So just like that, whatever sales contact or sales representatives visiting, it is very important to keep our eye and ear open to listen to all the possible product services they can offer, right? And many interviews really help, right? So these are important like sources where one can look for suppliers, right? Or global suppliers, if we are entering into global market, right? If it is really good to first try out with Fortune Global 500 companies, okay, because sooner we will see that the criteria which one should look for, right, they are very important, right? So to avoid any upcoming risk with the suppliers, related to suppliers, it can be minimized if we would contact the well established suppliers, just like the global 500 companies.